All right, guys. Hi, Dr. Sean here, back in our mailbag. I thought I'd give you something a little tropical to look at in the background here this week. We're talking about polycystic ovarian syndrome, and what do I think about it? How do I deal with it? What do I do in practice? See it a lot. It's one of these hormone components that you tend to see quite a bit in practice when you do a lot of digestive work, nutrition work. It just shows up all the time. It's interesting in that this particular condition, from what we know of it, it's an increase in too many male hormones in a female. Now, there's a genetic link to this. There is also an environmental component, and this is one of the few conditions where they'll really stress that idea of genetics and environment and how it plays on it. And so we know then that, all right, if there's an environmental component, you can get at it. Now, medically, there's no cure. They'll do birth control pills. Sometimes you'll see diabetic medications being used. Anything you can. There's all kinds of fertility issues involved with this, but there's no real cure that they have. And so that's where it kind of gets fun, and it comes into our world. So where do we start with something like this? Examine. You always have to look. And I like a 24-hour UA. It's where I start everybody. I want to know, what is the body holding on to? What is it throwing away? Because once I kind of get that idea of where the fights are being waged, now you know how to approach it. So you very simply go through and figure out, all right, what's the problem here? Now, in my experience with this condition, I find two things show up. Women tend to have trouble digesting fats, and then they eat too many carbohydrates, too many sugars. And I've learned in the past that when I restricted those sugars out of the diet, the condition seems to settle down significantly. So it made me start thinking, all right, there's a link here somehow. There's a stress component to this. And when you start looking at the hormone systems of the body, it's part of the endocrine system. And one of the, I guess, the facts that I live by, or one of the mottos that we live by, is that nothing goes on in that endocrine system that doesn't affect the entire system. So the thyroid gets pulled into the fight, the ovaries are into the fight, the adrenal gland is into the fight, the pituitary, all these guys that are part of this system are now involved. So what you'll find is a lot of times it's like owning a bakery that's in an apartment complex. And the guy downstairs is making all the pies and the cakes and the donuts, but he runs out of flour. So he goes knocking on neighbor one's door and taking a bar some flour, and neighbor gives him the flour. But eventually neighbor one runs out. And neighbor one goes to two goes to three, and it just trickles through the whole apartment complex like this. And what ends up happening is the real problem is the bakery. It's the really important system here. It's the important organ. But you're not going to see it until everybody starts running out of flour. And when that happens, the whole system fails. So when we look at the body, you want to approach it in this manner. Sometimes there are what I would call essential organs that need help, but they don't show themselves. All these little apartment people are showing themselves. You're seeing this symptom and that symptom and so on. So when you look at polycystic ovarian syndrome, the thing I'd be looking at with this thing, all right, where's the flaw at? Genetics, maybe, but it has to be influenced. Genetics don't just express themselves. There's some kind of an environmental component. There's some kind of stress that's forcing them to show their hand. And you've got to look for that. And if you can find the stress and try to remove it, nourish the body, amazing things can happen. You can look at fertility issues. You can look at abdominal pain and cramping. There's mechanical structural issues that occur with this sometimes. But if you balance the fat, help the body stabilize its sugars, and ironically of all things, keep your weight within a normal range. Obesity plays a huge role in polycystic ovarian syndrome. If you factor in all those things and focus on those as your core issue, you can turn almost anything around, including something they tell you that has no cure. Dr. Sean, I hope that helps you.